So got it. Recording in progress. If you can't be recorded, you gotta go say bye. All right. So welcome to October 1st, 2021 MVP Office Hours. We're so glad you're here. Um, as you all know, because well, you responded to an invitation and you said, I want to be there. You can find us on Twitter at MVP Office Hours. Dale Squire and my Twitters are below. I'm joined currently by Squire, my my partner in crime, and Dale will be joining us shortly. But if you need to connect with us, our Twitters are there. MVPofficehours.info is our website, and then we do have a Gmail where you can send inquiries. However, we do have a little announcement about that further on, right? So all of the events are really being updated very well in the Trailblazer Trailhead community. And Squire's got the path knocked out on the right of the screen. You also have upcoming dreaming events. Dreamforce, I hope you all had an opportunity to check things out on Salesforce Plus. A lot of fun if you haven't poked around in there yet. And then I don't know if it's still going on, but if you watch an entire segment, do you still get Disney Plus for a year for new customers? Also coming up is Tahoe Dreamin' and Florida Dreamin'. So you can go to California, go to Florida, you can see people in person. And then community groups, in person and virtual. We encourage everybody to join a Trailblazer group. And you can sign up for our meeting invites and Trailblazer meeting invites at the website listed, trailblazercommunitygroups.com. And then, is that Quip still working, Squire, with the virtual?
I've used it in a while, but it does open a document. So let's just
okay. Okay, but keep your eye out on things. And I know there's a lot of different communities happening. And so we're excited to have you here today. So let's go to the next slide, Squire. We have gotten a lot of emails lately, and we don't want to miss you because, of course, Squire, Dale, and I all have full-time jobs, and we do want to get to your questions as quickly as possible. But the best way to flex that is to use the community. And that way we can also do a group think and collaborate together on some of your questions and issues and whatnot. And this is also where we will look for issues to bring up ahead of the queue of folks that show up here today. All right, did that cover everything, Squire? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest message too is that, as smart as I want to make myself sound, there's way smarter people in the community. And so posting in the group ensures that someone will give you an answer that is not just a talking head filling in gaps. So, but it's also more about not missing one too.
Right. And of course, if you need to provide more detail and you can't provide it in a public space, we understand that. But let's kick off the question in that public space to make everybody, give everybody a chance to throw their brain power at you. All right, here we go. Next slide. Global MVP office hours, US, we generally meet on the first and third Friday. Portuguese office hours are the last Thursday. Do we have Carlos in the house? I didn't see if he popped in or not. So here's what everybody needs to know about Portuguese office hours is you don't need to speak Portuguese to go to these office hours. Carlos does a really great job of interpreting and translating and closing that language gap between English and Portuguese, because sometimes someone who speaks English has the answers to a Portuguese Salesforce challenge and vice versa. So if you're looking to expand your knowledge base, this is another great way to learn about situations that folks are encountering in real time. And our Twitters are to the right, MVP Office Hours and MVP OH Portuguese. Next slide. All right. Couple housekeeping reminders. Our next call is October 15th. Yay. This is an open Q&A. You can register at our bit.ly, US MVP OH. The recordings are available in the community. We post up on Twitter, and then we do have a YouTube channel. And so if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you'll get notified when the recording gets posted. We've got some favorite hashtags. Again, remember, we are recording the session. You check the box, you said okay to record. If you can't be recorded for any reason, we ask you to say goodbye now and catch the recording later. Please mute yourself when you're not sharing. If you need to ask a question, raise your hand or post the question in the chat. The hand raise is really handy. Christy, I see your hands up, so we'll get to you in a moment. Always introduce yourself. As much as we think we know everybody, sometimes your little box that has your name in it doesn't have your name. It's got like your kid's name or your dog's name, or maybe it has, like, I don't know, potato chip fan. I don't know. But introduce yourself, share your screen, but don't provide any production data, because I don't know how your companies feel about sharing their data on public YouTube recordings. But mine would probably frown on it. Use the chat to post any resources that you might look up while we're brainstorming, and then everybody gets to participate. So share your experience, your input, your recommendations, and your references, because that's how we all learn together. Next slide, please. We have MVPs in the house. Anyone? Anyone? I see Brian. I see Jacob. I see Squire, Joy. And then the big joke, right? Oh, we took that out, is that we're all MVPs, and we're just really glad that everyone is looking to really take on the challenges head on and help out others in the community. And we're really glad you're here. Can I say that more? We're glad you're here.
Yep, we sure are.
Denise's favorite GIF is of me like dancing at Midwest Dreamin' one year saying, we're so glad you're here. It's ridiculous. Our resource link Hall of Fame, our Salesforce Order of Execution, the Mandela Effect, and the Golden Circle. I encourage you to visit these because we seem to trip on at least one of them every time we meet. And then I guess we're going to kick off with Todd. Is Todd on? Todd?
I didn't see him.
Oh, Todd.
So, I mean, the short version is that there were some questions going back and forth between Todd and Stu and Dale in the email chain about some challenges with analytics. It seems like it might be a pretty regular occurring issue where a field either comes or goes from a managed package that's part of a data flow, and he wasn't entirely certain how to best make those changes. So I hope he comes back and shares what he learned, because I'm sure one of us will have to deal with that at least once in the future. So,
all right. If anyone sees Todd pop on, make sure you give us I don't know, throw something at me. I mean, I know it'll be a pitch, but throw something at me.
So that leaves us with Christy. Got her hand up first when she joined.
Thanks. You just introduced me, so I'm going to share my screen, and this is going to be a stupid question, but whatever. Oh, I guess you have to stop sharing for me to share.
Go ahead. You can.
Okay. Let me try again. Thank you. And I'm lazy. I share my screen. So I'm learning Experience Cloud and practicing, and I haven't had a whole lot of experience with it. And I'm on this particular trailhead that we are doing audience-based items. So I just want to know why, when I've created a Chicago homepage and an original homepage that is supposed to have a different text message up here, it keeps updating both of them. So
hold on a second, Christy.
Yeah.
We're not seeing Christy's screen, Squire. We're seeing yours.
Oh, I am.
Hold on.
it says I'm sharing, so
Yeah,
weird.
you were
that's okay.
sharing. It was just the host takes precedence.
I appreciate that. Sorry. Too many screens open up on my side. Good
My
now?
bad.
Oh, I think we're okay now, right? Just Christy's screen is up.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So in my Sandbox Experience Cloud, I've got the Chicago homepage, which is supposed to have one message that I put here, and the original homepage. And I was just doing this last night, that has a different message for that particular audience. Only every time I update the one, it updates both. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
So if I'm trying to remember, don't you have to assign the page to the profile so they know which one to see when they're looking at a homepage? Like you have access
It
to
didn't
both.
get to that part yet. I have page variations here, and in the audience for the page variations, the Chicago customers, I did that part, and then I believe assign, it should be assigned. Maybe I need to click assign, but it was curious.
Yeah, I think that did it.
Let's see, Christy.
Okay. I was just wondering why it was both having this. So hold on, because I need to fix this to say I'm just gonna type in any word here that's different than the other one. That's my goal, because the message kept, I assume I have to publish just because there's no save here. I was doing Control S last night. I'm like, I'll just do that.
And you actually only have to publish if you're trying to see it from the actual portal. While you're here, it'll save and you can keep it.
Okay, see, so the original homepage updated the word as well in this message, even though I've got a page variation. And you know, I don't understand the why it's doing that.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
And this is the target audiences based on the user object. So if no one knows the answer right off the top of your head, I was just following along and doing it. And this is the message the Chicago people are supposed to get. And this is, so I was following up, but when it wasn't doing what I thought it should be doing, and then I assigned it, that I'm like, I'm just going to ask tomorrow.
So, I want to click around and go bananas with this, but
Yeah. Yeah, I'm wondering if it's, you're changing the component itself is static.
Yeah.
Right. So my understanding is unless you're assigning audiences like to a specific components, if you have a component on the page, it's going to be on the page. So if you're going to have two different page variations, one for Chicago, one for not, you would have two components, one for the Chicago page, one for the original.
Yeah.
But
Which is,
you have one component.
I mean, that's one way you could definitely do it, but I wonder if it's also, is that in the header or is it in the body of the page?
well, where they had it from the trail head that I was taking was to put it in the, I go back, hold on. And I drag the component onto here and it has a variation, but it was to drop it, I don't know.
So I
have
think
to
right
get
now it
that.
might be in the header of the page, which is the same across your site regardless of page variations.
Yeah,
right.
it should be below the footer. So hold on, now I have to get back to, where do
Does
I
the-
edit this thing?
The rich content editor where it says shared, is that indicative of anything that we need to?
Yeah, that's where you would edit.
Mhm.
So if you
That's where I'm editing.
drag that component underneath the picture,
Yeah, or into the component that the picture's in. I like where your head's at, Sarah.
yeah.
Okay.
So like
Um,
if you just click it once and then grab the plus, you should be able to drag it down one, right? Into a different, like right there. Just put it right there.
Okay. And then it saves automatically, you're saying?
Yep.
And then back to the other one.
See how like there's
Yeah,
no
it's gone
header
altogether.
component anymore? Now, I think, Sarah, I think so what you've done is you've removed the header from your entire site, but you've only made the change to that text box on your other page.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay,
you see
so
where it says template
see where
header
it says
bottom?
template header here and template bottom here?
Yeah.
I was trying to put it in the exact same place they did. Look, it says header, look, it says
But
bottom.
they have
and I
it
put
below, they have it below template header bottom and you had dropped
Yeah.
into template header bottom. You're so close. It was like,
Okay,
it was a
so the
quarter.
header is across all of them and I need to put it somewhere else. Ah,
Yeah.
cool, awesome.
But
Awesome.
if you want to put it in the header, then Brian's right. You can also assign audiences to individual components and you could create two components, one for each audience if you wanted to do it that way.
Rather than the page for the audience. Okay. Which I have done what you're saying there about the components in Myola Yellow, where different things would show up for different text for help. It was a help text thing, but okay. No, that solved it because now I can go on, but I just, knowing that I put it in the wrong goddamn place, I was like, okay, I'm going to match where they put it.
So close. So close.
Always.
Awesome.
Perfect.
All right. Where are we next?
Andrea was up next.
All right,
Speaking of,
Andrew.
speaking of Experience Cloud, we are in the process of building ours out. I am not the primary person. Our team didn't have the bandwidth. They found somebody who did, who is like net new to Salesforce, but she went on and trailheaded and learned a lot of stuff. Great doing building, wonderful. And we are at a point where we need to make a decision on how things are built. And so we sell 17 or 18, however many different software products. And they're all different, and some are in different markets and whatever. And so we're toying with the idea of 17 different communities, or a single community, and like the homepage has essentially a tile for each product. And the person who's kind of doing the build work on the community side, I feel like is very much in favor of 17 different communities, because we are running into the issue with the navigational topic limit of like 25 and then 10 and 10. We have a boatload of articles, and so they're organized sort of, fairly granularly. So that limit we hit really quick. And because we have so many articles, like a global search probably would still be a problem in different communities. But I'm not sure on the level of effort to maintain all of that and the setup. So we're trying to like pro and con this, and I don't know enough. I'm fighting for a single community, because to me that just makes sense, but I don't know enough about community to argue.
Is
that
this
side.
authenticated or is this all public?
It'll be a mix. The articles and so knowledge articles will likely be public, but then they'll be authenticated for at least pieces, and probably like a forum answers question type thing. But the articles, which is again our first like roadblock, will be public.
So you have 16 products. If I have one of the products, should I be able to access the pages for the other 15?
Well, if in the single site, yeah, I think when we were going that route, we said, yeah, it's probably fine to allow that. So it is possible that people will have multiples, because some of them are like a suite of products. We just broke that, like there's an accounting one and there's an operations one, but they're broken out into separate components. But a lot of times they will be, a customer will have both.
So the challenge I think you'll have with doing 16 different communities, and someone keep me honest here, but I believe if you have someone who's authenticated, the way that you control whether or not that authenticated community user has access to a specific community is through the profile that it's assigned. So if you have a situation where you're going to say, this person needs to have access to community A, B, and C, but not the rest, and this person needs to have access to communities A, F, and H, you are going to have to build out profiles for every one of those combinations for all your users, and then someone's going to have to maintain and update and reassign the profiles for every single one. It will be a nightmare.
Yeah.
So unless someone can think of a different way to control that, I think you're better off with one community and maybe building audiences to control access.
Okay, so yeah, and I wasn't sure how access was controlled in terms of profiles, and I feel like so we are working with a consultant, kind of, sort of, like they're advising, but they're not really like in there. So I don't think they haven't brought up like how all that would be controlled. I think they mentioned like, I don't think they did mention profile, but something how, or maybe, what did he mention? Basically, essentially putting a boatload of check boxes on a user and check all the communities they would have access to or something. I don't know, but it sounded like, either way, it sounded like a lot of maintenance.
Well, and I'm going to give a sales side. I know that sounds crazy, but I did spend 20 years in sales. If I'm a customer and it's all separate, then I don't know what else you have. I like the tile idea from an end user perspective, like, oh, look what else they do. Oh, look what else I can buy. I know that sounds crazy, but
Oh, no,
I agree.
I thought too, was like, think about the user experience. You're having to navigate to a completely different page versus going back home and having all those tiles there. And they're thinking, because I think the other idea is, when we get into setting up answers or questions or whatever, chatter groups essentially, is it all getting too muddled and too confusing when you can't really separate things out if there is a single community.
There's something that I'm really concerned by that I think I heard you say, so I want you to restate that you were concerned about the tile count being somehow distracting or something. Would you let off with that?
No, it's there, and I mean, I like the idea of the single community. It's the navigational topics for articles that are current roadblock, and I don't know how we would potentially link to all of the other communities if we did it that way. But for me, it's like the user maintenance and setup, and because the argument being made is, I said, well, if you make a change in one place, you have to make it 16 or 17 more times. And her thought was, well, yeah, I have to do that anyways, because each product has its own homepage. So I'd still have to make that change 17 times. So I was like, well, unless it's like a global change, and then you only have to make it once because it's global.
Yeah.
Because no matter what, if you search functionality for articles, it's a global search in Salesforce. Can we limit and say only show me articles related to this product?
Sounds like a filter option to me. But I think that comes down to how is your knowledge base organized.
It's like I said, it's pretty granular. So we have 3 like markets, and then within that, like our SMB, and then there's like 2 or 3 products that are in SMB, and then those so the SMB is a category, and then there's another category for the couple products, and then under there is another level. Do some of those have other levels? It's possible. That might be our enterprise products that have where it's like setup and then admin stuff, and then there's more like another level, which is where we're navigational limit.
I think what I was concerned about that I thought I heard you say, but and maybe you didn't, was I would hate for a conversation like this to be driven by a template. So, I thought I heard you say something about like the 9 tiles and then having to have a second page of them or something, but I could have been making that up. But regardless, I think what I'm hearing has a lot more with what was it, Christy, were you saying, like, from a user experience, if I was using your products and I had to keep track of 16 different sites just to try to get my knowledge base, that seems like an awful user experience and really risk heavy from a support side to have to manage access for every user for their preferences, to ensure that all the sites are up to date with the same templating and the same nomenclature. I mean, just changing the contact us phone number could be 16 manual changes. That seems like a really, really risk averse process, regardless of the, like, just, I'm okay with doing that. Like that's too easily said, right?
Yeah.
I saw a couple nods. Does anybody want to add to that?
Because the other thing that came up in terms of, and I don't know if it was the consultant or somebody on the Salesforce side who said in terms of profiles and access, whoever it was, and I think it might have been the consultant, so in this case, the only different profile you would need is the 16 or 17 different guest profiles. But in terms of a community, like an authenticated user, so his thought was you only need like 1.
Technically, you only need 1, but then they get access to all 16 communities. So
Okay.
So it's a question of, are you trying to restrict access? And if you're restricting access, basically the only way you have it is to say, this profile gets access to this community, this profile gets access to a completely different community.
Yeah, and I don't know that and that'll be a question for that group to identify. And it might be that we say only Like it might be that if you're an SMB customer, you only get access to the SMB related products, but you're still looking at 3 different, I mean, it's only 3, but I don't know it. 3 is better than 16, well, than 16 or more.
And to your point, Brian, what happens when you have that one user who needs two of these sites? Now you've set up expectation where that user has to have 2 completely unique logins because they can only have 1 profile assigned.
Or you have to create a completely separate profile that only certifies the
Yeah.
access to one community and this community.
Yeah, so then
You-
you've got
Profile's
3
factorial.
plus 2 2s plus 1 3. You've got that Cartesian product of profiles you have to self-imagine,
Yeah.
manage.
You want the fewest number of communities possible from a security standpoint. You know, if it makes sense, like you have true silos, like I'm an SMB, I can't be an SMB customer and an enterprise customer, then it might make sense to have separate communities for SMB and enterprise, right? But if you ever get to the point where you can say, I have customers that can cross multiple categories, then the use case for multiple communities across for those categories breaks down very, very fast.
Yeah, that's not I think that's an approach that we hadn't taken, is instead of breaking it out by individual, I mean, it's sort of, you end up doing like a hybrid of doing like an enterprise community with those related topics. There are a couple products that overlap. And they would just have to be pages in those individual communities. Like 3 is not as bad as 16.
Right. But again, I would only do that if you need, for security reasons, to restrict access to the other information.
Okay.
Right? Like if I'm an SMB, you don't want me as an SMB to know anything that goes on the enterprise related pages. Then that's a good reason to use a separate community. Because although you can get a similar effect by using audiences, you know, just like Christy showed at the start of the call, but that is different work and setup, and more you have to think through.
Yeah, because the other thing to think about is like when we're going to like case creation and that kind of stuff, is like, I don't know what all of their requirements are going to be, and what they haven't clearly defined, like what expectation is. Like, are we going to have to pick these, you know, is it going to be a list of this many products you have to pick, or is it, if you break it out, it's 1, but then that determines how I build out that. If we go with a screen flow instead of the native case creation component, that impacts that, and how, and so, okay. I don't know. I don't know what their thought is. I think we were going with a single community. Then the thought is we'll just give people access to everything, because there was concern that if, especially since we're doing articles up front, and really it's just authenticated, it'll be like cases again, and then like a knowledge, or not knowledge, like an answers thing. And then we want actual people. So then the concern was also, well, what if you log in from community A to community B? How does that impact if you're counting logins? So that's the other thought.
Concurrent login versus the counts. Like, yeah, you've got challenges there too, right?
I believe
We have a question out to our AE and the solution engineer on our team assigned to us to understand how that all works, because they explained that, like, if you had a single community, a login, any one login, if you're an individual and you log in 5 times in a day, that's 1 login. But again, how does it go if you log into this community versus that community? I don't know.
I think it's by user. So as long as it's the same user logging into the different communities, it counts as 1 login if it's within 24 hours.
That's good.
But if they have a completely different user account to access the separate community, then that's 2.
Yeah. So
you have to pay for that in advance. You know, you'd have to assume that we're going to have 20 people that are using both every day. So you have to pay that overage just in case. That would be 20 a lot, but if it was 200 or 2,000, so.
Okay. Cool. I think that gives me a little bit of, I don't don't want to say ammo, but helpful. We'll call it ammo. Well, it gives me a little bit of ammo, and that's good. If I had clearer understanding of what they want, that would be helpful, but I don't. So I think I'm good. Thank you.
And one other thing, I'm sure there are some use cases that your EA can deliver for you. I have to assume that there are bigger companies with more robust product lines that are doing this with one community and can probably give you some really nice examples.
Yeah.
Of that.
And there's the person who's building stuff out. She found a couple articles that essentially like say like, here's how you would do it with multiple communities. Like you need force.com code and something else and like permission sets. And I'm like, yeah, not a developer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
okay.
I don't have a maintenance level. I'm you know, who's going to maintain it. And then also if you need permission to create permission sets for all of it, oofta. So yep, thank you.
Keep us posted. Love to know
Oh,
more
yeah.
about where you had. So Todd joined us, and Christy, I saw you put your hand back up. So Todd, we were hoping you might be able to give us an update on the conversation you were having with Dale and Stu about your analytics question. Are you prepared or not really?
Well, we haven't answered anything yet. Stu was not able to make the meeting, and we're gonna try to set up a time, just him and I, next week. So it's
you
in a
mind
production environment, so I can't really show it anyway.
Would you mind just summarizing what I tried to paraphrase and I think I butchered it? Would you mind giving us a quick summary of what you're dealing with? So
I
if anybody
gotcha.
else on the call can help you, they can help you.
So we have a managed package that's doing address verification for us, and they dropped a number of fields from their package. I think it was referred to as a Generation 1 package. I'm not sure what that means. But the fields they dropped are still accessible to us. The one limitation and known issue within Salesforce, though, is a field that has been dropped from a package can't do certain things like be accessed by flow. So we were trying to do some things, and where we ran into trouble was on another Salesforce product called, I think it's Engage. It sits on top of Pardot, and it allows our sales reps to send emails. They were trying to do a list view that used the county field, and it just plain blows up. It takes down the browser. And that's because that field used to be managed and is no longer. So what I did is I created new custom fields for county and moved all the data over. And then I removed all of the field level security for the old county fields, so nothing could see it. And that's when the analytics data flow started blowing up because it can't find that field, and I am unable to find where it's buried to be updated and replace it with the new county fields.
Got it.
So whatever was set up for analytics was done by the consultants and hasn't been touched in 2 years. Not even sure we've got any management using it, but it's there. So we're going to try to keep it up and running for now.
Anyone on the call has some familiarity in that space that they could signal? I'd be guessing at best, so I'm not gonna waste your time. Stu's response made me think that he knew exactly what you were trying to do, so I'll let him.
Sounds like Stu has been there.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Christy, you had another update?
I did have another question. Remember, I was asking someone at my company, but she's buried in meetings. So, customer has a particular profile and their current access is read-only, and it's for contacts. Well, they need to be able to edit just a few fields. They want to open that up. So I didn't know if I need to do option 1 or option 2. Now, option 1, because I don't know what's right, but if I, in the profile, give them editability, and that little list that comes up at the same time for all of those fields, do I mark them as read only except for the fields that they should have editability on? And or part 2 is, because when I go to the object and I go to the field level security, every single profile, including theirs, has editability on that. So my concern was, even if I'm locking it down on the cred side, if the field says you can edit it, am I missing something? I just wanted to do it right.
When you said editability, are you referring to the profile permission to edit read-only fields? Or are you referring to the field level security for that field is not marked as read-only?
Yeah, so obviously I know. So I'm referring to how I get it right where everything's locked down except the, let's say, phone field, email field, and address fields. Those are the ones that they're allowed to touch on the contact. Because my concern is I click edit by the profile. Hey, you have edit on the contact. But there's all the list of those fields right below the fact that I just gave them edit on the cred on the profile. And I can click read only right there. But over on the object, it still says that that profile can edit that field. Does that mean they can still edit that field? Do I need to go into every single field for that profile and lock it down there too?
So if you're editing the list of fields underneath the profile for the object, I'm sure that should be updating the field level security for that profile on those fields.
Okay.
All right, so I'm a little mystified that if you go to a field and you hit view the field level security and you just updated the profile, that you still see it edit as not.
So you're saying it updates automatically?
It should, because essentially all fields level security is doing is saying this profile has view access or it's read only for the profile. And so if you're updating it for the profile, you should be it's basically you're updating the exact same thing. So I guess where I'm stuck is the fact that you're saying that there's a discrepancy.
Oh, no, I'm
between the
saying I
profile
want to
that you're
make sure I
updating.
don't miss something. I didn't want to lock a particular field, not the email. I didn't want to lock that down on the profile and then go find, since it says currently, right now, it says that they have editability on that,
Yeah.
Christy, now they can edit everything because you didn't check it over there too. I didn't realize.
It comes down
that
to
it was-
personal preference. For me, it's if I have a profile that I need to update the field level security for multiple fields on one object, I edit the profile. If it's
Okay.
I have a field that I need to update multiple profiles for field level security, I go to the field. It's
I just,
Exactly the
one
same-
was going to
same
be
list,
one and
right?
one was going to be the other, and I didn't want it. But if you're saying it updates automatically, then that'll work.
yeah,
Awesome.
both methods you're updating the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's just how you're looking at it, right? It's
Yeah.
like profile looking at fields or object looking at profiles, right?
Right.
It's just
Okay.
the same
Here, I
data.
thought that I'd have to update it in both places. So thank
No.
you.
Yeah,
Okay.
it should look the same. In fact, that's a great test, is you could set it up for just one, save it, like do it on the profile side, and then open the object one, and you should see the exact same change. And if it doesn't, then we'll hunt down Brian. But it should be,
All
be
right.
exactly that.
It's kind of like your template header, Christy.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what? I was about ready to before the call today. I'm like, oh, I'll just do it in UAT where nobody else is but me right now. So I'm like, but then I'm like, well, I'm here. I'm going to ask. So,
Yeah, I'm glad you did, because I think that's a good reminder for everyone. So
So while
You're
you're
also-
at it, Christy, I would definitely look to see if any of those profiles have edit read only fields. Because if any of them do, then it doesn't matter if you marked a field as read only or not, they will be able to edit it.
yeah, and that I was just gonna say, we need to add a link to the sharing and access hierarchy documentation to go with our
Oh.
execution, so you can be like org wide, then object, then field, then exceptions, like all that. That
right. One goes up
tool.
and one goes down, but
Yeah.
I was taking the easy way out by asking y'all instead of going to read for an hour.
No, we should just put it in that handy slide that we like to reference. That there's another good link there, so I'll find it and do that.
Thanks.
All right, that's everything that I've seen pop up in the queue, but that doesn't mean that's the only questions we have. Does anybody have something that they want to cover? Any cool updates? Anybody learn anything last week in Dreamforce they want to share and compare?
Hey, Squire, it's Mike.
Yeah,
I want to ask Christy a question.
I don't know if we, well, okay, fine. Go
I'm sorry.
ahead.
No, you were mentioning about profile and read only and the thing that tripped my trigger was if it's a security question, do you want to make it a permission set? Is it one user on that profile or all users on that profile?
No, it's all users on the profile.
Okay.
And it's, yeah, they'll have more because the particular public defender's office has a lot of turnover.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
But, I mean, I think that's a really valuable question, Mike, because I mean, we've seen that the transition of security access is moving toward permission sets more and more. And the reliance on setting it as a profile, it sets an expectation of, okay, now every time someone needs something, at what level do you assess that? And so don't just assume profile is the way to go, right? I mean, permission set could be a great way to assign it to the whole world, but do it in a more surgical way.
Yeah, I asked if it was going to be like 4 people, I was going to go permission set because that'd be really easy to just say, oh, well, you know, they have read only, but these people can do this. But yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think your $100 question is it always going to be everyone that's assigned to this profile? And if the answer is yes, then you keep moving that way. But if there's even a pause, might be worth a permission.
Well, on every item, the fact they change their mind every other day on a lot of things is really fun.
Keeps you on your toes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right. What else? Joy's got something.
I do. So I really want to know, Brian.
Yes.
Was
yes.
your flow demo yesterday or is that coming up?
It was
you-
yesterday, but the recording is done. So Joey's asking, I did a live stream of migrating a workflow rule to a flow. And on the assumption that you've never built a flow before.
That's me.
Yeah. So Joy, I do have, the recording is up and I just tweeted the link not that long ago.
Excellent. The reason was my day yesterday went sideways. And so I missed that live stream because I thought it was yesterday, but like I said, yesterday was different than today, still sideways, different than today. And so I will catch that recording because I really want to see how that goes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the larger thought is I went simple to start.
Mm-hmm.
So for people who didn't know, Salesforce basically said at Dreamforce last week that Workflow Rules and Process Builder is going to be going away over the next couple years, starting with you won't be able to create any new ones and then eventually gone in favor of flow. And so there is a, they are talking about putting together a tool to let you migrate things over, but who knows when that goes through. So the recommendation is for any new automation, you should definitely consider doing it in flow. And then and then you might want to consider migrating some maybe higher important ones. The trick is with workflow rules, you could either say, I should have one workflow rule and one flow, or I could have multiple workflow rules to one flow, and there's pros and cons and challenges to each. I went the route for one-to-one as far as the demo goes, but I'm planning on probably tackling a process builder next.
Oh, okay.
depending on what people want, which will be more complicated.
So Brian, I have a suggestion. You take the workflow, you migrate it to Process Builder and then migrate it to Flow.
Well, technically speaking, the Process Builder builds a flow in the background, but anyone who's been able to hack that site to see what the flow looks like, it's a nightmare.
It's ugly.
So from a maintainability, you don't want to do that route.
Well, no, I'm just saying like as like a step-by-step, right? Like, and so, because everybody is going to have like I shouldn't say everybody, but if you've got a workflows, you have also been in the world long enough to know that you now have process builders, and then you've been around long enough to know that we're migrating to flows. And so one of the things that I keep thinking about is like, I was constantly working to get orgs out of workflow land and just get them into process builder, right? And now I've got to work to get them from process builder into flow.
I mean,
and
here's the things that you have to consider. Okay. Workflow rules work differently than flows, period, the end. So there are circumstances where if you have a workflow rule now, depending on what it does and what you do with that object, I would not recommend migrating to a flow yet. Because for an example, if you have an object that you do really heavy imports, bulk transmission transactions and things like that, depending upon what the workflow is doing and what you need the flow to do, you run the risk of hitting flow government limits. As of right now, I know they've been talking about changing how that works. But like, for example, if you came to me and say, hey, on contacts, I import 1,000 contacts on a regular basis and I need my automation to run. When I do that, I will go, maybe wait on flow for right now. But if you had, a situation like opportunity closed one, as a workflow rule, you're not mass importing closed one opportunities. And if you are, you shouldn't be relying on your automation for anything anyways. So that's an example where you go, yeah, I can migrate that to a flow.
All right. Good to know. So when I get stuck, I'll just call you.
So Mike, tandem question on that. We had a couple that would have been flows, but we needed to run it in all system mode. So we put it back to auto launch and launched it from a freaking process builder.
Mhm.
How do you suggest, rather than, is that coming before they deprecate
It's already
the other
there.
ones?
It's
Oh.
it's already there, but it depends on the context of the flow. So if you run the flow as a record triggered flow, which is basically what you are creating to replace a process builder workflow rule, it's
Mhm.
already running in system context.
Oh,
It's only if you
okay.
build an auto launch flow that you're calling from a process builder where you have to say, I want this to run in system context, not the user. And fun fact, if you have a screen flow, you can create a screen flow that runs in system mode. However, that has its own hurdles and considerations and security implications, and your mileage may vary. But if you're talking straight up, hey, I want a flow to run when a record is created or edited, you do a record trigger flow, it's already in that context. Now, the one thing
Okay.
I did hear from people, and someone keep me honest because I haven't tested this. If you have a validation rule and you have a workflow rules, a workflow rule can run and ignore a validation rule, but flow can't. I've heard that as a rumor. I can't substantiate it though.
Yeah, and I seem to remember
That's
Monica
true.
saying that she wrote something with a custom setting that the first thing she does is turn the setting on or off to say I should or should ignore validation rules and processes to do some of that stuff. Is that, and I think it was tied to that very statement, right?
Yeah, so that makes it tricky. But there is an actual user that runs in system mode called the automated process user. And so what I want to fuddle around is, can I assign a custom permission to the automated process user and then use that custom permission as an exception for all my validation rules?
Oh, that's awesome. I like that. Yeah,
don't
when
know
you
if
do
you-
that webinar, I'd like to be invited. Thank you.
I don't think you can find the automated system process as like anything you can even modify or assign. So I'll be curious how you do that.
You could do it. I know you can access it through the query. So I'm wondering if you do an Apex, if you can hack it and assign a permission set to the automated process user through code.
Like at the start of an event, like say, oh, by the way, this guy's doing this at this time, or like
No, just as an admin and run a little snippet of anonymous Apex to say, I need this custom permission on the automated user, and I can't assign it through the normal UI.
Yeah,
That
I
would
bet
be
you could do it
very
through
sneaky.
VS Code, right?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I haven't tried it yet.
I don't know.
That'll be interesting.
But I
Okay.
mean, the better answer is don't rely on your validation rules or your automation to always skip your validation rules. Because if you have a record that's out of validation, that validation rule exists for a reason. It's probably better that it fails.
Yeah, true enough. All right, I got 7 minutes. Who else has got one for us?
This is quite random, but anybody who follows me on Twitter might have seen, I was recently registering for a COVID testing site that uses Salesforce. Great. And I had a really interesting thing happen where I had filled out some other information. They had enough of that saved that it auto-filled part of the form that I was filling out for like create an account. And I got the dreaded something went wrong, contact your administrator error. When I cleared out the autofill and just typed it in again, it worked. So something weird is going on there. And I wondered if anybody knew anything about that.
I've had instances where the text that shows up on your screen isn't the actual value that's been set.
Yeah.
So like issues where like the browser has autofills, like Google likes try to be helpful. So I've done things where I've typed things. It looks like I typed it, but what happens is behind the scenes is Google has filled it in.
Yeah. And I wondered, like, when that happened to me, I was like, oh, I wonder if this is, I get not infrequently or not as infrequently as I would like complaints from our users who can't sign into our community because blah, blah, blah. I wonder if that's part of what's going on.
It happens all the time with me for logins.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
is just like
And
the
what
biggest
is it?
pain in my
Is
butt.
it Chrome doing an overlay or something? on
So
the
I'll
form?
give you an example. Sometimes Salesforce will say, hey, we know who you are, so we're going to go ahead and put your username already in there.
Right.
Right. And so all you have to do is type your password in. But the problem is, even though you see it that way, if you have an autofill setting or password settings through like LastPass or Chrome is usually the culprit,
Right.
it will actually change the value, but it doesn't change what you see on the client side.
Huh.
So it looks right to you. As far as the browser is concerned, when you submit the form, it's wrong. And so with logins, I always say, click the little X to clear out the user, type it in manually.
Yeah. Is there anything to like do about that as an admin to help users who aren't savvy enough to know what's happening?
Try.
Yeah, that's what I do. Drink.
Incognito window, and then it doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is so much of the stuff now is becoming more and more client-sided.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do, especially when you're dealing with communities. Like you can put an FAQ up there.
Yeah. If you're having trouble logging in, please clear out the values and try again. Anyway, I thought it was really interesting. I
Clear
was
your
like,
cache.
oh, this gives me insight into the user experience that I have been on the other side of.
All right. Anyone else? Don't be shy. It doesn't even have to be a question. If you just want to share something cool, we're all learning every day. So I'll ask then with the last second, because I thought it seemed pretty exciting, but also I couldn't think of a reason why I'd need to do it. At the end of Dreamforce, they were talking about Einstein Document Reader going pilot next spring. Oh, it might be actually with this release. Doing a scan of a document that is pre-formatted to populate fields in Salesforce. And I was like, that's so cool. Why would I ever use that? So I'll put it to you. Why do you have anyone have a business use case to understand why you would do that? Like where that would be coming from, that you've got a doc that is, oh, Sarah's got one.
So we have membership forms. I've created an online form for people to fill out. It's great. But some people like to send in a check with a piece of paper because they're old fashioned, and we just manually type that information into their Salesforce record. So it'd be really cool if we could scan it and it would do it for us.
Cool. All right.
Any place where you don't have connectivity.
I forget that people actually have paper and do things with said paper. All right.
Yeah, hey guys, Kiran here. I'm in healthcare, and all our start forms are the HCP interactions. I mean, the provider interactions to the pharmacies goes through faxes, even today in 21st century, to my surprise, right? So they all actually do OCR to read it through and feed that information through, and there is data stewardship to actually make sure the data quality is good before they feed it into the the workers queue.
Sure. Yeah, you just said another word I haven't heard in a million years was fax. So that's okay. Gotcha.
The thing that gets me though, Squire, is I would think the OCR is kind of making the assumption that the information is typed versus a handwritten. Like, I don't see the OCR being all that successful on like a document for my school that I've hand filled out.
Yeah, and I haven't seen a demo, but I keep hearing that this like the natural language learning thing that does like that it's smarter and smarter. So like, you know, we all saw that Simpsons where with the that Apple product. Remember the first Apple what was that thing called? It doesn't matter, but like, you know, like I think it's getting better and better, but I haven't seen a demo. So you could be right. You might just end up with gibberish too. So
Yeah, so we've done actually, we use third-party vendor for Praxis. I've done 2 POCs, one with Einstein OCR and another one with Salesforce Intelligent Document Reader. So that the Salesforce is partnering with Amazon to use their TextRack services to extract the data, while Salesforce is actually building a competitive product, which is Einstein OCR in-house, right? So we tried both, decided to go with the custom implementation for TextRack for reading the insurance cards, because, you know, their out-of-the-box solution was it was like a cookie cutter that it can only read forms, it can't do anything else. So they have like the OCR just reads all the JSON, and you give the key value pair, and it tries to map all the keys with predefined location keys and gets the values for those. But for insurance cards, you know, there are like hundreds of providers out there, and the information could be anywhere. So we
Sure.
wanted that to be a little more intelligent.
cool. Well, thank you for that info. I appreciate that.
And Squire, this Apple Newton's cracking me up. But also I'm disturbed greatly by your Chrome update needs. So Squire, you tend to that. But we are at 2 o'clock. So it was so great to see everybody.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So please keep joining us on the first and third Fridays. Put your questions in the community. Talk to us on Twitter. And gosh, we'll see you in a couple weeks, right? Couple weeks. So bye, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Have a great weekend.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
You don't have to go home, but you can stay here.
I'm already home.
Go off.
Shush.